Greetings, one and all. May it be a sunny day out there for you. It's been a beautiful sunny day here, and I've been reading a lecture by Rudolf Steiner, and it is entitled The Relationship of Man to the Sun. And what I found interesting about it was that it explains man's fall, the reason why man isn't doing what he should be doing in his work with the cosmic hierarchy. And it's kind of like how Gurdjieff talks about how we got disillusioned. And I did in a previous show about the Kunda buffer and how we got attached to our Kunda buffer. And then when it was taken away, we loved it. We loved the way of living with a Kunda buffer, that we continued that way, even though we didn't have the Kunda buffer anymore. And Steiner's kind of saying the same thing, but not with a Kunda buffer. He wasn't given a towel. He says that humanity, men and women, come from the sun, but we're born on this earth. And he talks somewhere about the sun was born out of this earth, which I'm going to have to try and find where that is, because that's a bit confusing. But he also talks about these hierarchies, like Gurdjieff does, the hierarchies of from the divine source down to us humans. And he discusses 4 hierarchies, which are, just find them. Maybe I got the wrong page out. I thought I was all prepared. Now the pages have gone a bit weird. So we've got the 4 hierarchies. The first hierarchy is the seraphim, the cherubim, and the thrones. And seraphim's love, I think. Cherubim's, I can't remember, and thrones is will. I might have that round the wrong way. Then the second hierarchy is the exousi, the dynamites, and the kyriates. So another set of angels, but at different levels. So there's different ranks. And the third hierarchy is the angels, the archangels, and the archai. But then there's a 4th hierarchy, which is man. So there's 3 different stages of gradation of like angelic beings that come together to form the 4th hierarchy, which is us, because we've been created to work with the planet Earth, to help the Earth develop. And in the future, the Earth should become a sun, long time away, far, far, far away. But our workings on this planet go into the sun. What we do on this, into the Earth, sorry. What we do with our life is creating the vibrations and energies that help the Earth develop into a sun. So all these people that are asleep and living in a materialistic way, not too progressive for the evolution of the sun. Us that are on a path, we're trying to become sun beings. We're trying to be the sun within us. You know, the Christ is the Sun King. We're trying to connect with that so that we can then work that kind of energy creation and put it into the earth to help with its development. It's all a bit confusing, and the way Steiner writes it out, he doesn't write this out, actually. These are lectures. So this is one of the things why some of the Steiner books are quite hard to read, because they're lectures that have been written down in shorthand by someone and then typed up, obviously. That's why I recommend the books he actually wrote for those that start on Steiner, because then you've got a more clear and concise idea of his what he's putting across, his cosmology. So Steiner's talking about the sun. I'm going to read a little bit from this lecture, which is called The Relationship of Man to the Sun. And he says, the Earth was looked upon as ruled in her inner activity, in her movement in the cosmos, by a group of intelligences whom one could bring together under the name of the intelligence of the Earth star. But what is the intelligence of the Earth star? He's discussed in other lectures about how all these different planets have a certain intelligence to them that helps them develop You know, we all hear about Mars, for example. Mars has the war god living within it, so that, you know, he's got that intelligence working with him. With Venus, it would be the goddess of love, many say, so she's working within that. So what is this intelligence that is working within the earth to help it develop? And Steiner says that is us humans, men and women. He says, the intelligence of the earth star was man himself. The men of those times saw in man a being who received a task, a mission from the spirituality of the world, not merely as modern man imagines, to walk about on the earth, to travel over it by train, to buy and sell, to write books, and so forth and so forth. No, they looked upon man as a being to whom the world spirit had given the task to rule and regulate the earth, to bring, as it were, law and order into all that has to do with the place of the earth in the cosmos. So we're supposed to be here to help with how the whole running of the earth is. And he talks about in this lecture how that mission has been lost. Man has forgotten that over the ages. And he's saying, how does he say this? So he says, there was in those days still a feeling for this task. It was known that such a task had once been allotted to man. And he's talking about this being discussed in perhaps the mystery schools, or that people just knew what they had to do, or they were led perhaps by people that were a bit more like the priests and the kings that knew their role on this planet and were encouraging men and women to continue this. The world's spirituality had really made man the lord of the earth, but in course of his evolution, man had not shown himself equal to the task. He had fallen from his higher state. When men are speaking of knowledge nowadays, it is seldom indeed one that can catch even a last echo of this view. What we find in religious belief concerning the fall goes back ultimately to this conception. For there the point is that originally man had quite another status on the earth and in the universe, that he has in fact fallen from his higher state. So he's saying that man has lost his way, lost his path. And many of us feel that way, don't we? You know, we feel like we've got a mission on this planet. What are we supposed to be doing? Why aren't we doing it? Probably because we don't know what it is. But apart from this religious conception, wherever men think they have attained knowledge by correct methods of thought, it is only here and there that we may still find today an echo of the ancient knowledge that once proceeded from instinctive clairvoyance, and that was well aware of man's true calling and of his fall into his present narrow limitations. And Steiner talks about in previous epochs, men and women were not like us today. They had, in the very ancient times, a clairvoyance that kept them in tune, in touch with the divine source, with the gods and the God, and with the angels and the archangels and that hierarchy I mentioned earlier. So we were told what to do, but we wanted to do it. We were happy to go along because we wanted to be a part of the whole system. And then as men evolved a bit more, they lost that connection with the divine source, but they still had the connection with the angels and the archangels. And from what I can understand, what Steiner's saying is we still have that connection with the angels. The angels still talk to us, telling us what it is we're supposed to be doing, but only those that are attuned to that vibration can hear it. Most people have switched themselves off from listening to this. And he goes on to explain why. So the conversation turns on whether man as he stands on earth today is really a creature who is self-contained, who carries his whole being within him. And such a person will say to you that this cannot be. So he's talking about people discussing this in the modern day. Most people just poo-poo these kind of ideas. Man must in reality be a far more comprehensive being. Otherwise, he could not have the striving he has now. He could not develop the great idealism of which we can see such fine and lofty examples. In his true nature, man must be a great and comprehensive being who has somehow or other committed a cosmic sin. Let me say that again. Who has somehow or other committed a cosmic sin, as a consequence of which he has been banished within the limits of this present earthly existence, so that today he's really imprisoned, as it were, in a cage. And so many people come to me and say this. I just feel like I'm on a prison planet. And I feel like that myself sometimes. And I know Steiner talks about Blavatsky, Madame Blavatsky, being kept in an occult imprisonment by other magical societies. But it seems to be implying that we all are being kept in this, some kind of imprisonment, because we're not doing what we should be doing. So we've been cut off in a way, though they're still calling down to us if we reach up. You know, the divine source and the hierarchies are not just making themselves appear and going, here we are, this is what we're telling you to do, because we've been given free will. We've got to want to do this. And he was going on to say, man was regarded as the bearer of the intelligence of the earth. But now such a person as, and he talks about Agrippa, ascribed to the earth also a demon. And in every being, every planet has a like an angelic being, intelligence to work with, and a demonic being to work with. The sun obviously has the sun kings, and then its dark side is he who should not be named and begins with S. And all the planets have that, including Earth. And what Steiner seems to be saying is that us humans went along with the demonics instead of with the, well, not all the humans, but many of them went along with the demonic way of being, because they offered us. All right, he says here, he talks about, I'm just going to go back over something. This is Steiner. I have described in my Occult Science, which is a very good book, how the sun separated itself from the earth, or one may say separated the earth from itself. For the sun, you must remember, is the original abode of man. Ever since the Saturn time, man has been united with the whole planetary system, including the sun. Man has not his home on earth. He has on earth only a temporary resting place. He is in reality, according to the view that prevailed in these olden times, a sun being. And I find that just fascinating and confirmation for me. Gurdjieff himself keeps talking about we need to relate to the sun and become sun beings. And Steiner's saying this as well. And I know it's in various other esoteric texts as well, which maybe I didn't quite understand at the time I read them, but I'm going to go back over them and perhaps make shows on that. In his whole nature and existence, he is united with the sun, and he ought, as man, as a sun being, to have an altogether different relation to the earth than he has. What should happen is that the earth, first of all, should obey her impulse to bring forth out of the mineral and plant kingdoms the seed of man in etheric form, and the sun should then fructify the seed. We've got to remember that on this planet Earth, we've been given a physical body. So our etheric body is still there, it's being formed, but it's like part of our sun being, and our physical body is part of our earthly being. Thence should arise the etheric human form, which by establishing its own relationship to the physical substances of the earth, should then take on Earth's substantiality. The seeds of man should go up out of the earth with the purity of plant life, appearing here and there as ephemeral fruits of the earth, darkly gleaming. These should then, in a certain season of the year, be overshone by the light of the sun, and thereby assume human form, but etheric still. Then man should draw to himself physical substance, not from the body of the mother, but from the earth and all that is thereon, incorporating physical substance into himself from the kingdoms of the earth. That, in their view, should have been the manner of man's appearance on earth, in accordance with the purposes of the cosmic spirituality. So that was what we were supposed to be doing. And then we're helping the earth develop as well. as our evolution continuing. And Steiner goes on, the development that came later was attributed to the fact that man had allowed to awaken within him too deep an urge, too intense a desire for the earthly and material. Thereby, he forfeited his connection with the sun and the cosmos and could only find its existence on earth in the form of the stream of inheritance. And that gave opportunity for the demon of the earth to begin his work. The demon of the earth would not have been able to do anything with men who were sun-born. So this demon of the earth is working on us through our earthly physical bodies. I don't think this demon of the earth can get to our etheric bodies. So we're trying to keep our etheric bodies clean and pure, so they've still got that connection to the sun. But many people, let's say the sheep of this world, have no connection with their etheric body. They just not in tune with it at all, possibly not even aware of it. They're living in their earthly physical body. And for Gurdjieff people, I think this is kind of another way of saying of that Kunda buffer that was taken away, where he was saying people still wanted to live in their Kunda buffer state because it brought them down into the earth and it was a different way of being. I still can't quite fathom out why there was such a difference or why they didn't want to go back to the mission they should be doing in the Gurdjieff work. But Steiner seems to be saying it's because that demon tempted us to stay in that earthly body, which kind of relates to a lot of religious texts that we all know of. So the demon of the earth would not have been able to do anything with men who were sunborn. Sunborn man on earth would have been in very truth the fourth hierarchy. And I was talking to you before about the 4 different hierarchies. So now man has split in that 4th hierarchy into 2 types of being: those that want to be some people that continue the spiritual path and the soul work, and those that don't want to be some people and are living their material secular lifestyle. Maybe they're not even aware of what we're looking into, and if they knew about it, maybe they would be turned to our kind of path and would want to do that kind of thing. Maybe they themselves feel there's something missing in their life, or that they're imprisoned in their life, and that there's more meaning, there should be more meaning to their life. Or maybe many of them will just not be interested in this at all because they're so dense, not in stupidity, but in dense in physical, earthly ways. And Steiner writes, but because man gave rein to his strong impulses in the direction of the physical, he became not the being on the lowest branch, as it were, of the hierarchies, that's the 4 hierarchies, but instead the being at the summit, at the topmost branch of the kingdoms of earth. Mineral kingdom, plant kingdom, animal kingdom, human kingdom. This became the picture of how man stood in the world. Moreover, because man has not found his proper task on the earth herself has not her right and worthy position in the cosmos. So all this that's happening with men and women and the earth, when they're not helping her development in the and her role in the cosmos, is actually, but they're punishing her as well because she's not being part of it. Because what they're all doing, she's being held back as well. For since man has fallen, the true Lord of the earth is not there, which is supposed to be us. What had happened? The true Lord of the earth is lacking, and it has become necessary for her place and course in the cosmos, not being regulated from the earth herself, to be regulated from the sun, so that the tasks that should really be carried out on earth have fallen to the sun. So the sun's now doing what we should be doing. And this is why we're trying to do sunlit path work, I'm going to call it, rather than materialistic, secular, dense work. We're supposed to be, so if the sun's doing the work for us or trying to influence people that are sun beings to do the work, well and good. Hopefully there's enough of us out there to help get the earth back on course and stay within the cosmos hierarchy. The man of medieval times looked up to the sun and said, in the sun are certain intelligences. They determine the movement of the earth in the cosmos. They govern what happens on the earth. Man ought, in reality, to do this. The sun forces ought to work on earth through man. Hence that significant medieval conception that was expressed in the words, the sun, the unlawful prince of this world. And then Steiner goes on to ask us to reflect on this. Understand what this is saying. And I know many people say, oh, Steiner writes later that everything's going to work out all right. But Steiner actually is saying, if everything does work out all right, this will happen. But we're at a pivotal point, and he makes this very clear, that it doesn't necessarily mean everything's going to turn out all right if we don't get enough people to do the right work and be the sun beings and work with the sun and the earth together. It could easily fall to the demon side of it all. It's not guaranteed that this earth will evolve and continue on her right path. It's all down to us humans. This is our mission on this planet. And I think sometimes people miss this bit in Steiner. He says, you know, it's an ongoing battle, and either side could go either way. But this is a pivotal point now. And he did specify, because he did some lectures in 1916, specifying that in the next 100 years will be the next opportunity to get everything back on track. And that's this time, this is now. Obviously, he then goes on to talk about Christ and says that Christ took on the role for us all because we're all failing at it so badly, that Christ came down and took on the work, and that Christ has gone into the earth and into the etheric world to continue to do the work that we should be doing. That as some beings, if we're doing the work, there is a chance that we can meet the Christ. I'm just going to read that little bit about where he says that. And now reflect, my dear friends, how infinitely such conceptions deepened for medieval man his feeling for the Christ impulse. The Christ became for him the spirit who did not want to find his further task on the sun. Remember, Christ was the sun king, who was not willing to remain among those who directed the earth in unlawful manner from without. So he's talking about he wants to come and stop the people that are directing the earth in the wrong way. He wanted to take his way from the sun to the earth, to enter into the destiny of man and into the destiny of earth, to experience earth events, to follow the path of earth evolution, sharing the lot of man and of earth. Therefore, for medieval man, the Christ was the being, the one being, who saved for the cosmos man's task on earth. You know, Christ came and took us all on. And I know maybe many of you will be thinking, oh, this kind of relates, Christ does all this for our sins, blah, 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 come from the religious institutions. So they've kind of misunderstood what Steiner's saying. The Christian institutions that say, oh, Christ has come to save us all and take on our sins. He has, in a way, maybe, well, he has taken on our sins in a way, because he's doing the work that all us sinners, now I sound like a preacher, not everybody's sinning. Many of us are trying to do the right work, but those that aren't aware of what their role is, he's doing it on their behalf. Right, let me just see. There was one more bit I wanted to read. Right. In this time in man's history, when his relation to true manhood as well as his relation to the Christ was still understood, so he's talking about the medieval time, what may be called a super personal manner. In this time, spirit knowledge, spirit vision was still a real thing, was still a matter of experience. And then he gives us this warning about how man's striving for true manhood must be abandoned. Earthly man must leave it to the Christ to fulfill the task of the earth. Well, I'd like to think that we can help the Christ in this task for the earth. I want to help the earth. I love earth. I love the country. I love the plant life. I love the animal life, the bird life, the insect life. You know, I want to help Gaia, Mother Earth, to evolve. He says, through man's sin, the earth has gone over in an unauthorized, unjustifiable manner into the kingdom of the sun. The sun has become the regent and ruler of earth activities when it should be us. We should be doing it, but we're not. So they've had to hand it back over to the sun to deal with it. And so over against a world system given by the gods with the earth in the center has now been set another world system that has the sun in the center and the earth revolving round the sun. You know, and obviously we all hear about this of Copernicus and such like. And then he does go on to warn, blah, blah, blah. Men have overthrown the old world system, the teacher would say, and set another in its place. And they do not know that this other is the outcome of their own guilt, is really nothing else than the expression, the revelation of human guilt, while all the time they imagine it to be the right and correct view of the cosmos. So, you know, that's because they've turned away from doing their work. And what has happened in recent times, the teacher would go on to say, science has suffered a downfall through the guilt of man. Science has become a science of the demonic. Science and spirituality do not run together anymore. In the past, in the ancient times, science and spirituality worked together. Science and the religious way walked hand in hand together down the path because it could, the scientists could understand how everything works, and the religious priests or the rulers of the, well, not rulers, but you know, the people that run the mystery schools would understand the why. So the scientists would be doing the how, and the spiritual side would be doing the why. And I'm just going to do one last bit. Things like this need to be known if one is to understand aright, in all its shades of meaning, the great change that has come about in the last centuries in the way man looks on himself and on the universe. And with this weakening of man's living connection with himself, with this estrangement of man from himself, came afterwards the tendency to cling to the external intellect that today rules all. And then he goes on to say that this external intellect is not human, not part of human experience. Were it human experience, it could not live so externally as mankind as it does. The intellect has really no sort of connection with what is individual and personal with the single individual man. We could almost call it a convention. It does not spring from inner human experience. It approaches man as something external to him. And this is all part of what we're doing with this spiritual path and soul work. We're going inside, finding our inner selves, the internal man, to work outside, obviously, as well as inside. But in today's world, most people let external things come at them, and they just potter along in their lives, letting external things happen. Where when we're working from an internal side, we are more aware of ourselves and our role in life and in the earth and in the universe, and being part of the whole cosmic hierarchy. So I'm going to leave it at that, because I think there's quite a lot to take in, but I do highly recommend, if you can get it, the relationship of man to the sun by Rudolf Steiner. And that was given on the 11th of January, 1924. And I don't have the GA number. I thought I did, but I don't. But please go and read about it for yourselves and be the sun beings that you're supposed to be. Shine forth, people. Shine forth.